recently got back into Star Citizen, finally able to run it on some of the higher end of the graphic settings. So the game looks pretty good. I'm constantly trying to love this game while there's tons of bugs that lead me away from playing through the gameplay loops in the game that take almost an hour for myself to complete even one, if I do. It's it's a long gameplay loop. There's a few things that I ran into about 10 minutes in. Getting on to the metro in the game, there was a bug where I teleported into the actual car that moves you around the map, and I couldn't really tell if it was a bug or a feature because it took the immersion feeling away from the game. Felt like a quality of life feature in the end because I didn't miss the train, but I didn't actually get to walk onto the train, which I thought was kind of weird. 16 minutes in, walking past some NPCs at New Deal in Lorville, where you can buy ships. Some of the NPC interaction, they actually acknowledge you when you walk up to them, and they'll engage in conversation. When you get close to them, they have a menu that pops up, and clicking some of the options on the menu made it look like you had like a mission available, like a job that you could do. But in the end, it just kind of didn't go anywhere. And you can go back into this menu prompt again, but it again doesn't really go anywhere. Seems to be a small bug with the lighting, also in New Deal, where everything goes dark. It felt like a bug, but almost a feature in a sense, where in real life there could be power outages. So it didn't seem out of place. There is this moment where I walked into my hangar, and I thought I retrieved my ship. And while I was typing this thought out, it seemingly popped into existence. So another immersion break, where the ship wasn't present as soon as I walked into my hangar here. The controls to turn on the ship and your thrusters seem to have changed a little bit over the past couple months even, where you'd be pressing U and I to turn on the power for your ship, and then to turn on your thrusters. This changed into like an Alt plus R, if I remember right, or maybe it was Alt and U, but I just remember there being a combo that you had to press instead of the two buttons. But it seems like we're back to just pressing U and I. I would say it's at this point in the game where you really start to appreciate the scale of the maps and the cities. This right here is the feeling that you kind of expect from this game, and they nailed it really well. You're coming out of your hangar and you're looking back as you're exiting the planet. It's one of the best parts of the game, in my opinion. Sunset in the background. Actually accepted a mission, and the first part of the mission was at an outpost, and I've never been to an outpost before, so this was interesting to fly into for the first time. I didn't know that you couldn't get too close to these things. Of course, there's the entering outlaws controlled territory, proceed at your own risk, but I didn't think they would start shooting at me right away. So my ship starts spiraling out of control. There's actually some damage to the ship now, where you don't just blow up instantly, there's parts of your wings that'll fly off. And it makes it really difficult to control. So you can see that here, where I actually go into a third person, and you can see that wing is missing. Super hard to control. I could control it, but then there was a point where I got hit again, and then still somehow managing to control it. Eventually we just crash into the earth, or the planet here. And there was a point where another turret was shooting at me. So it seems like the territory of this outpost is huge. So you really have to plan your entry there quite a distance away. So I was immediately shot down. This is a little bit disappointing because I have to start over again. New year, new ship. And this was about 40 minutes into the game. Really long gameplay loop, at least for a new player, someone who's just getting into it. And then learning a hard lesson 40 minutes in. But again, I am reminded at why I keep coming back to this game, and it's the attention to detail. In the terminal room where you go to retrieve your ships on Lorville, there's some reflections in the glass, and it's actually a really low resolution image. They were really impressive, but you could clearly see the low resolution image floating behind the glass. I thought it was a smart way to create the illusion of reflection while the player is focused on like the rest of the game, you know, the city in the background. It looks good when you're running past it quickly or just glancing through. I would say things like this are the strong points of the game, at least for me right now. Even some of the terminals in this room have fingerprints that you can literally see when you're moving back and forth, which I thought was kind of crazy as well. I would never have noticed any of this if my settings were not all the way turned up like they are now. There's kind of a weird bug with how my ship landed, and when I went to retrieve it, when I get inside the ship, it seems like my head is kind of sideways a little bit, almost as if I'm sitting in the chair incorrectly, but it quickly fixed itself when I pressed space while my thrusters were on. Moving up fixed it relatively quickly. So of course always impressed by the large cities in this game, and immediately upon flying around I noticed a fairly large hole in the city with some thruster-like engines around it, the three orange glowing things there. So of course I wanted to fly into it, and it looks like you should be able to fly into it. But you also learn here that it's a restricted area and you can't actually land here. So I wanted to see if I could, but obviously I immediately turned around to avoid my ship getting impounded. And I wanted to also see if there's this effect everywhere in the city. So like maybe you can land on another building somewhere. But no, again, you're prompted that your vehicle will be impounded if you stay there. But it kind of makes sense. Because you can't really just land a plane anywhere in a city. That doesn't happen in real life. So this game aiming towards the realistic aspect. Obviously they're not letting you do that, but I think it would be cool if there was a stealth mode where you could land your ship anywhere. And maybe trade with other people or just have access to like the ground in this city would be cool. Maybe there is a way to do it with some sort of stealth mode, but I'm not aware of it. So it's about an hour in where I get to this new checkpoint for the mission. I actually started a new mission because the last one disappeared. And this one is a package retrieval. So upon entry into the planet, there are some enemies actually surrounding this package, like a little base here. And I noticed that they added cars to these outposts now too. Well, this isn't actually an outpost. The last one was an outpost, but this is sort of like a camp, I guess. And they all have cars at them now, which is really cool. And we'll get to drive that later. But typically I just kind of beam these guys, and so I don't have to deal with them on the ground because I didn't have much ammo for my gun at the time. The flying on mouse and keyboard feels kind of floaty too, or it feels like I don't have full control of where my crosshairs are. and I've tried messing around with my sensitivity a little bit, but I just can't seem to nail it down that much. But it gets a little bit easier to control as you get used to it. And on here you have to sort of look at your lasers and not your crosshair, especially when you're this close to enemies, because your crosshair is probably more useful at a distance. Interestingly enough too, you can hear some of the player dialogue when you approach them, which I thought it was it broke a little bit of the immersion when you can hear them from inside your ship. Like, they're very loud, and they're wearing helmets, and you're wearing a helmet, and you're also in this loud ship. It doesn't make much sense for you to be able to hear that, but there is a lot of sort of like this in GTA where you walk past people on the street, they'll yell something to acknowledge that your players passed them, which is kind of cool. Just seems like it's a bit excessive right now. Of course, we had to check out the cars in the game, and this one felt a little bit slippery when I was driving it, which is a little bit disappointing because you're going full speed ahead and then all of a sudden you turn a little bit and you're slipping sideways. Maybe that's just how this vehicle is supposed to handle a vehicle with 6 wheels. Usually driving vehicles with 4 wheels handle a little bit differently, so that could be it. But still cool that they added those to all of these camps. I've seen them at every single one so far. And after we get this package, it's starting to feel like I've mastered the gameplay loop. At least a little bit. Making it in and out of the camps is a good feeling. So about an hour 40 in, and ready to deliver the package. All that hard work, that entire gameplay loop leading up to this. So in the end, I'm always reminded why I keep coming back to Star Citizen, and that's simply because the game looks so dang good. So hopefully you enjoy the rest of these clips here, showcasing some of my favorite parts visually of the game. And maybe you'll agree, this is the reason why we keep going back to Star Citizen.